Welcome to the Fed to Fed podcast, where we dive into the dynamic world of government technology. In this podcast series, we'll be joined by current and former federal leaders and industry trailblazers who are at the forefront of innovation. Here, we speak openly and honestly about the challenges and opportunities facing the federal government and the Department of Defense and its partners in the modern age, driving innovation and the incredible capabilities of technology along the way. Whether you're a federal leader, a tech industry professional, or simply fascinated by IT modernization, just like us, this podcast is for you. And we're so happy to have you tuning in. Driving efficiency and mission success with a modern, scalable digital infrastructure. To effectively support the adoption and expansion of AI and other emerging technologies, agencies need to consider many factors as they devise their digital strategies. In this podcast, experts from Equinix will share insights they've gained from working with customers from across the federal government in support of digital infrastructure initiatives. The conversation will highlight key considerations for driving mission success, such as choosing the right platform to house an agency's data infrastructure, enabling secure access to the agency's digital ecosystem, and assuring digital infrastructure is scalable and can meet data privacy and governance requirements. Well, Glenn and Christine, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm so looking forward to this discussion.
Glad to be here.
Us too.
Fantastic. Well, why don't we go ahead and get started? Christine, I'd love to kick this podcast off with you and ask you, what are the challenges driving the need for digital infrastructure?
This is something that we talk about on a daily basis, and it can be as broad as just saying technological advancements, economic needs, societal and environmental things. But really, it all comes back to the explosive data growth that we've had and that we've seen in the last 5 to 10 years with things like remote work and the adoption of 5G and video streaming. And of course, now AI workloads, right? Which is the hot buzzword, but it's really something that the adoption is just fast and it requires a lot of thought in terms of successful adoption. And I would also say, just one of the things that I run a team here at Equinix that is focused on federal government. And so, we have a lot of things where we're discussing latency sensitive applications, scenarios where there's regulatory and compliance requirements that all kind of come back to the digital plans and modernization efforts that are being taken. There's a huge list. So just starting from there, I could drill down on a couple of them, but those are really the ones that are top of mind.
That's great, Christine. Thanks for sharing. Glenn and Christine, you all are working with a lot of different federal agencies and the Department of Defense and the intelligence community as well. What are the 3 to 5 critical considerations for agencies and DoD or the people that are listening when implementing a digital first strategy?
Well, the first obvious answer, right, would be security and compliance, right? If you don't come, with FISMA, even on the non-DoD side, right, you've got a lot of regulations that you have to follow to protect people's, personal data. And so digital infrastructure, as Christine alluded to before, revolves around first the data and then the things that process it, right, and the networks that transport it. So I'd say the second thing would be access to the networks, right, for data mobility. So having data in a central location, some computers to process that, right, whether it's for AI or whether it's some sort of SAP application for government or other applications, that needs to connect to your users and sites, perhaps has to go over the internet to connect to end users, right? And one of the things that the agencies need to also think about as they are constructing this digital infrastructure strategy going forward, because of the changing nature of applications and the different layers as we add AI and these kind of capabilities to legacy applications that we've had for a long, long time, you need to architect for change. So it's not just like I need networks, it's what networks, what infrastructure, where do I need to put all of this stuff? How do we need to build out this broader based digital infrastructure strategy to accommodate for change that I don't know what change is going to come, but I want to be able to proactively respond to that instead of becoming a victim to it, right? Because otherwise things can get pretty bad pretty quickly. And I think last is the last thing I'll bring up, and then maybe I'll ask Christine what she thinks, is the reliability of partner that you choose, or set of partners, or how efficient you can make, how many partners you're going to choose to go and affect this change enabled strategy for your digital infrastructure, right? So we only have to look at what happened to the SEC with a data center in Beltsville, I think it was last year, a couple of years ago, that the reliability of partner is something that really, the due diligence really must be done to make sure that you've got a partner that's financially strong, that can withstand the change along with you as these things come your way that you can't predict.
Excellent. Christine, your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think you covered it, Glenn. I think compliance is critical from a security standpoint. The ability to scale is huge. You talk about our partners, that's massively important. And kind of the interconnected ecosystem beyond that, right? It's not just about the partners that you have, it's also perhaps about what other agencies you're trying to work with. That is a something that's not always taken into consideration. I think sometimes people think, oh, I'm gonna look at building the foundation for this AI adoption plan, and a data center is a data center. And that's not true, right? You can talk about space and power and co-location, but when you also have the ability, or when you consider the potential need for connecting beyond, right? Having multiple clouds that you can access, being able to talk to multiple carriers, right? Not being locked in. When you want to talk about having the ability to perhaps connect to another agency's cloud if you're collaborating and working, those things are really important. And I don't know that that's always necessarily part of the story when people are sitting down and saying, oh, we're going to set up this machinery and it's going to have this much power and it's going to require this many GPUs. There's a bigger story. And so I think it's really critical that we make sure to add those little, it's kind of like adding spice to your recipe, right? It's salt, but it makes the difference. Having the additional connectivity can be the difference between a successful and an unsuccessful AI strategy.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna add to that, in that all the stuff that you just mentioned made me think of a chessboard, in that the digital infrastructure is basically the chessboard upon which you put all these chess pieces on and you move them the way they need to be moved. And so the choice of who you're going to use for your chessboard is really the fundamental choice that's going to change the whole game for you. Because if the board falls apart underneath your game, you've got no game. So I think if you're thinking about this in a non-technical way, that might be a good way to think about it.
That's great information. So pre-planning and looking at down the road into the future is also probably a really important strategy for agencies to consider.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I would say it's almost, you have to put the desired outcome first. What is it that you're looking to achieve, and then build backwards from there? Because if all you're trying to do is throw equipment into a cage, that's not appropriate in strategic planning.
Yeah, you will get back into a corner with that kind of a strategy.
Right.
Excellent. So is there one best location for an agency to house this mission critical data?
Their best location. Well, again, so there's data that is production and transaction oriented, which has to obviously be near systems, so to act on them in a low latency in one area, and AI inference would be a good example of that. But then you've got the large corpus of data that an organization accumulates over a long period of time, that maybe they need to do analysis over it or whatever. I would say that as we mentioned earlier, the kind of the challenge, the critical considerations when you're implementing a digital strategy, right? I'd say that the place to place your mission critical data is in the place that is both highly secure, that matches the security compliance requirements that you have, that your agency has, but then has the maximum optionality from an interconnectivity perspective to your partners, other agencies you're talking to, clouds you're going to consume, so that data can be used in ways that not just you need to do today, but also where you need to go tomorrow, and where you may not even know you need to go tomorrow. So data is very difficult to move around. It's difficult to maintain multiple copies in different places. You get into governance issues pretty quick. So being able to execute strategies from where your core is, that core data corpus is, it involves making sure you're putting it in a place that has access to as many possible networks and partners as possible. Now, obviously, we do a pretty good job in that. We do a lot of work at Equinix in building our ecosystems and interconnection to those ecosystems, so that customers can enjoy that kind of optionality.
That's great. So, Glenn, you mentioned security. How can agencies ensure secure, seamless access to digital ecosystems for enhanced collaboration and data sharing?
Well, it's making sure that the partner you're using, first of all, having a partner that controls both the locations where you need to be, as well as the interconnection from those locations to that ecosystem I was talking about, right? Having one vendor, one partner who can bring all that together in an integrated strategic offer to you allows you to more easily plan for all this change in future, right? Because then that partner can do things like provide agile interconnection, a layer of automation from that over the physical wires to these different partners, for instance, for cloud vendors, where I don't have to have dedicated lines to every partner. I can use something like a virtual connection to go and get to these partners, and perhaps consume virtual products instead of physical products to make me more agile and able to try new things, or perhaps get things done without having to buy equipment. And so to that end, like, we have things like Equinix Fabric, and within that our cloud router functionality and some other products that can be used in certain federal situations in a very, very agile way. But even our cross connects, when we have the capability of ordering cross connects via API. So we've thought about agile consumption of this interconnection. I like to call it our agile interconnection platform. That's not our official word for it, but having that ability to consume interconnection in an agile way, right, allows a company to privately connect to these partners and ecosystems, which enables the ability to have these secure and network connections and access, right? Because without that, you can't have that if you're doing anything over the internet, right? Or even trying to do SD-WAN or VPN over the internet. That's not going to cut it in many of these cases, and we're seeing less and less of that.
That's great. Thank you so much. So, Christine, can you share one or two examples about how agencies' investment in infrastructure has resulted in success?
Yeah, absolutely. I can't necessarily name the customer, so I'm going to call them Agency X. But I have a really compelling example. Agency X has been with us for quite some time, and they embarked on their transformative journey, their data modernization a few years back. They needed to modernize their entire digital infrastructure, and they knew that we would be a good partner to do that, to accomplish that. From the outset, they were highly motivated. Their IT team is very sharp, very creative, and they saw the advantages of leveraging our commercial data center capabilities. They understood that we had, that robust physical security that Glenn was talking about, and he started to mention that all of our U.S. facilities are FISMA high, as well as meeting a long list of other acronyms in compliance metrics, but also our unparalleled connectivity and our access to this vast ecosystem of partners. But this customer in particular was incredibly open to innovation. And I will tell you, when they started on their journey, they had to be very adaptable because they realized that they weren't necessarily doing all the things that they needed to be doing. And they had to course correct a number of times. And the whole time, they were in lockstep with us. We had our whiteboards, we had our conversations, and they were willing to experiment, right? We did a solution validation center meeting. They did pilot programs. They continue to do pilot programs today on different things that they're working on. But ultimately, what they ended up going with was a hybrid multi-cloud solution, which I think that term gets thrown around a lot by industry. People think, oh, we tap into two clouds and that qualifies us as hybrid multi-cloud. That's not really what that is. And it is, but it's more than that. And I know you're familiar with these terms, Susan, but just in general, when we talk hybrid multi-cloud, right, we're talking about not only accessing multiple clouds through our various on-ramps. But that hybrid solution being they're doing something commercially with us, but maybe they have some sensitive information that they want to retain on site. And so we are able to support both their commercial spaces, which they own and maintain within our facilities. And then we provide that last mile connectivity to their facility, which then gives them the ability to retain what they need to in-house, but then to come through and access their regionally distributed architecture, whether it's East Coast, West Coast, North, South, however they've decided to do that. And I won't get too into the specifics, but that's all possible. That's what they landed on, a hybrid multi-cloud solution. And the reason they did that was because it gave them the sense of security with what they needed to keep, what sensitive information they needed to keep in-house. So that was flexibility. It gave them some cost savings because then they were what they kept there, and what they have with us, they have with us. And then better performance because through our fabric, which is really our mesh, our interconnected platform, they can experience that low latency across the country. And then, today, because they're with us, any plans for expansion and all of their work that they've done with cloud and their AI strategy, it can build upon what they're already doing here. Their information is stored here, they have access. And so we can continue down that journey. And that story, by the way, I will say they've done a really good job. They're probably ahead of the curve in comparison to a lot of other federal entities, but that story is common. We have a number of examples that look quite a bit like that and have been very successful.
That's an excellent example. Thank you so much for sharing. So, new technologies such as AI and quantum computing are emerging. How can agencies future-proof their digital infrastructures to take advantage of these new technologies?
I think I can tack that onto what I just mentioned. Having that flexible infrastructure and then being able to look elsewhere within the company, elsewhere to say, we are adopting an AI strategy. We want to do some pilots. We want to test these different functionalities. We can support that. But at the same time, we also have AI ready facilities. We have invested in liquid cooling. We have invested in building our IBXs to scale so that they can support the power needs and the space needs that are conducive to AI adoption. And that's a big deal. You can find a data center out there that just looks like a warehouse, or you can find one that is attempting to retrofit and probably spending a lot of money to do so. Or you can look at a modern data center that is looking very much to the future, that has some critical partnerships globally, which support AI usage. And you can really say, hey, wait a minute, we need something that has this level of readiness. That makes the difference between being able to scale and not.
And I'd also say that, once you find that platform that has that readiness, the ability to scale, to provide the physical environment to support both AI and quantum, the thing that AI and quantum have in common is that they both start with data. So it goes back to, once you find that partner that gives you that environment, right, that highly interconnected, ecosystem connected environment that you feel comfortable with, you want to bring your data platform, right? And everyone's got a different version of how they do this. Bring that data platform to that location, because bringing that data, marrying the data platform onto that digital infrastructure will allow you to then use that data platform in the maximum number of ways in the future, right? So you're looking at future-proof. That's the first step. And since AI and quantum are highly dependent on the quality and quantity of data that you've got, so that's a great first step for a lot of agencies or organizations to take in that AI or even the quantum journey, as we see some companies doing. It starts with the data. So that's a great place to start if you're having trouble figuring out where do I really start to put myself in a position to take advantage of future AI capabilities. Start with your data, because guaranteed it's not a format today that can be easily consumed by AI. So you're going to start there anyway. Doing it from all the different places it's at now, like you might have some in the cloud, some in this cloud, some in these locations. getting it consolidated, or at least one copy consolidated into an environment that you can then create your different badge data from an AI perspective. Then you've got that springboard to launch your AI use cases as you go forward, and you're in position to do more of that in the future, right? So it's a combination of having the right platform and then doing the right things with it, right? Those two things will future-proof you.
I love it. Thank you so much for sharing this very important information and providing great direction and some really good nuggets for agencies to consider as they work with Equinix and other partners to be able to future-proof their digital infrastructures. So thank you, Glenn. Thank you, Christine. That was awesome.
Thank you.
Thanks.
This concludes today's episode of the Fed to Fed podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave a review. Your feedback helps us continue bringing you thought-provoking conversations with the brightest minds in government technology. Stay tuned for our next episode, where we will continue to explore opportunities to harness the power of technology and explore what's next in developing a more innovative and efficient government. Until then, this is the Fed to Fed podcast by GovTech Connects. Thank you for joining us.